Shalom, everyone. The date is May 16th, 2025. Welcome to Exploring the Motherland, African News with Garth. I am your host, Garth. The purpose of this show, Exploring the Motherland, is to promote the mission of Quest to Unite Africa. The mission of Quest to Unite Africa is to promote economic development and critical infrastructure for the African diaspora and the African continent. We do this through four main pillar strategies. That would be cultural engagement, medical, business, and cultural engagement. The purpose of this show each week is to help highlight and convey why Quest to Unite Africa is needed and why we all need to start thinking about our future and how we want to help shape our future as it pertains to our family on the continent and also everywhere else we are within the diaspora. But without further ado, there's a lot to talk about. Let's start. First, white Africans go to U.S. under Trump refugee plan. And of course, I always put the articles and the links to the videos so you could look at your own time. And the article reads, the Trump administration welcomed on Monday 59 white South Africans it granted refugee status in the United States, having deemed them victims of racial discrimination while drawing criticism from Democrats and stirring confusion in South Africa. U.S. President Donald Trump has blocked mostly non-white refugees admissions from the rest of the world, but in February offered to resettle Afrikaners, the descendants of mostly Dutch settlers, saying they faced discrimination. Asked on Monday why white South Africans were being prioritized above the victims of famine and war elsewhere in Africa, Trump said without providing evidence that Afrikaners were being deleted. He was not favoring Afrikaners because they are white. Trump said, adding that their race makes no difference to me. South Africa maintains there is no evidence of persecution and that claims of white apple cider vinegar, you could read between the lines, start, with the G, in the country echoed Open's new tab by Trump's white South African-born ally, Elon Musk, have not been backed up by evidence.
Donald Trump's administration is aiming to bring the first group of white South Africans to the United States via its refugee program as soon as next week. 3 people familiar with the matter have said. It's a divisive move.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Especially given that Trump has been blocking refugee admissions from the rest of the world. 2 of the sources, who requested anonymity as they were sharing internal plans, said their aim is to fly the initial cohort of around 50 Afrikaners into Washington Dulles International Airport in Virginia.
It was like an answered prayer.
Life coach Katia Beeden is administrator of a website that seeks to help white South Africans take up Trump's offer.
We've been forgotten. It's very hard for us to travel. It's very hard for us to get visas. So to suddenly hear that a country like the United States is offering us refugee status was a really big deal. And I was so excited. I felt so relieved. It just felt like a lifeline.
In February, Trump issued an executive order that called for the US to resettle Afrikaner refugees. It said Afrikaners, who are descendants of mostly Dutch early settlers, were victims of unjust racial discrimination. The assertion that minority white South Africans face discrimination from the black majority has spread in far-right circles for years and been echoed by Trump's white South African-born ally, Elon Musk.
I guess the key issue just to highlight is that none of this is actually true.
Political analyst TK Poe says the refugee scheme has created a false narrative that South Africa is a country going through some civil war.
And then secondly, within the internal borders of South Africa, it really has created a lot of division. It's almost as though President Trump has gone out of his way to sow internal divisions.
Violence against white farmers and a law allowing for the expropriation and redistribution of land are often cited as evidence of anti-white discrimination in South Africa. However, out of 26,000 murders in South Africa last year, just 44 were linked to farming communities, according to police statistics. Crime researchers say the overwhelming majority of murder victims are black. In addition, 3/4 of private land in South Africa is white-owned, and not a single expropriation has taken place. South Africa's government has criticized Trump's program, saying that it fails to recognize South Africa's history of colonialism and apartheid. It added that it's ironic that refugee status is being offered to people from the most economically privileged part of South African society. The average white household owns 20 times the wealth of the average black household, according to international academic journal The Review of Political Economy. Official data shows unemployment rates are far higher among black citizens.
As long as it's not here, you can go anywhere you want.
Trump's order also came after he'd suspended all U.S. refugee admissions, citing security and cost concerns. Thousands of Afghans, Congolese, and others fleeing conflicts were blocked even after they'd been vetted and cleared.
What Biden did to this.
Interesting. You own 3/4 of the land and own exponentially more wealth than the majority, but you're being persecuted. Interesting development, I say. Next video.
Welcome back. Now, the Trump administration has brought about 50 white South Africans to the United States as refugees. The United States says it is the start of a larger relocation effort for white South Africans, which it claims are being persecuted because of their race. Now, the South African government has dismissed the U.S. government's allegations as completely false. And in other news developments, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has given a cautious response to Russian President Vladimir Putin's offer of direct peace talks. But to talk to us more about some of these developments, we're joined virtually now by a researcher at the Thabo Mbeki School of Public and International Affairs at UNISA, Advocate Sipho Mantula. Advocate Mantula, good to have you with us here on Morning Live. Welcome. All right, we seem to have just lost that connection to Advocate Mantula, working to get it back. But of course, so much happening. We heard earlier with our correspondent, Trent Murray, in that crossing to Tel Aviv this morning, what the latest is. The US President Donald Trump, he is embarking on an official trip to the Middle East and, of course, visiting 3 countries, but will not, of course, be visiting Israel during this particular visit. But also, of course, later this week, there is expectation of direct talks between the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, in Turkey. But it remains to be seen, because Zelensky has indicated that he most certainly will be there in attendance. And the question now is to see whether the Russian President Vladimir Putin will attend these talks in Turkey. We know when Donald Trump came to office, he was very clear and determined to end that war between Russia and Ukraine. And it has taken a bit longer than I suppose he anticipated he would to actually bring an end to this war. But is this the moment? Will they be able to broker a truce in Turkey this week? And of course, we remain to see what happens there. And then, of course, also the trade wars that erupted post the Trump administration's entry into the White House. And we will also update you on what the latest is there between the United States and China, and how that is likely to impact the global economic sphere. But I believe we do have Advocate Sipho Mantula back. Advocate Mantula, good morning and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, my sister in Jambo Africa, to the viewers of Morning Live on this Africa Month. Apologies, I don't know, maybe the Americans who are pleasing us to go live on visuals.
Now, and I want to start on that point, Advocate Mantula. We saw a group of Afrikaners rush to the US at a time when the Trump administration has suspended refugee resettlement from everywhere else in the world, and begging the question as to what is the situation with these white South Africans and why are they being prioritized?
Sakina, this is shocking, but what we are seeing, it is the implementation of the executive order of February the 7th of 2025. And you will recall the rebuttal by the President Ramaphosa during the SONA, that all the allegations that have been raised by the US on having a certain privilege to a certain class and a certain race, on certain issues, Sakina, that we know that there have been issues of the question of the land reform debate, the issues around crime and the killings, but they are not founded. But as you look, South Africa has acceded to more than 3 international instruments when we are talking about refugees. We have our Refugee Act of 1998, where there is actually what we call abusive application of asylum seekers. And that's what we are seeing now with this move of the 49 white South Africans who are becoming delinquents, by the way, Sakina, because when you look at the Refugee Act, there must be some threat, there must be some fear, there must be some prejudice. But if we look 31 years later in this country, South Africans are the one who have been bearing this brand. I don't think this will actually sound very well when we look at the geopolitics between South Africa and US. We have seen our Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Alvin Botes, on Friday, trying, or what I'll call trying to massage Americans on trying to re-educate them on the refugee laws and how do we treat this matter. Some of us, again, we have said, maybe this issue of the white Afrikaner fears should have been ventilated at the delayed national dialogue. Probably President Ramaphosa delayed this national dialogue. We should have dealt with these fears and uncertainties of the white communities.
And the point you touch on there, Advocate Mantula, about the Refugee Act, because who is a refugee and under which circumstances do this group of South Africans, and of course we are told that there would be more, there would be a bigger group that will follow on this. So when you say there needs to be some repercussions where, how, and by whom?
Sakina, it is by the state. Remember, as I said, we are signatories to the 1951 Refugee Act, the 1967 Protocol, and that's where you get this definition. But at the same time, we have Section 22 of our own Constitution and 21, which allows the freedom of movement and the freedom of choice. So there might not be a serious repercussions, but there must be lessons learned in terms of people who have peddled wrong information, claiming that in South Africa there is genocide happening. And that's where, as a state, the issue of the hate crime, the issue around how people peddle wrong information should be dealt with. Hence, I said, if they are raising persecution based on race, religion, nationality, I think South Africa has tried to raise the issue of constitutional democracy. They've tried to raise the issue of our judicial system that is effective, that could have dealt with these issues. But I don't think we should be worried about a tiny minority when you have a lot of people, more than 50 million, 60 million that are suffering, Sakina, and they have not been seeking refugees, even if it is tough. And we know very well that we are also experiencing refugees from other African countries that we have to deal with. So when you look at this case of the white Afrikaner spheres and their misinterpretation of international law and our own national law, because I think Dirko is correct to be saying that how are you going to justify if you have to return back? Because it seems now you are applying what we call a dual citizenship.
So, is it clear at this stage, Advocate Mantula, exactly how many Afrikaners have applied or been granted this refugee status?
Remember, Sakina, we had the numbers of 150 to 60, but for now, you have to go through a vetting process, which is done by our Immigration Home Affairs, has to be done by our criminal intelligence unit to look at criminal records. But also we have to look at the issues that will mean to say that if they are applying, are they going to...
All right, you can look at the rest of the video. I put it in the chat. And my synopsis of this, I believe that this South Afrikaner initiative will cause a lot of tension domestically here in the United States. Also, you know, obviously there's a lot of tension in South Africa over this because, you know, the ability to have your own sovereignty, you know, in alignment with being able to, you know, portray your own laws and processes, you know, is being questioned by the United States, and that's a violation of, you know, South Africa's sovereignty because they are painting an image of something that is not true, and that's happening on the world stage. And the basis that Afrikaner is coming to America due to G-side diminishes refugees of war and crimes of violence all over the continent of Africa. There are people within the United States who are being deported back to their country after fleeing real human rights crises. Henceforth, this will portray a negative image of the United States as it pertains to foreign relations and immigration. And to continue the saga of the white South African refugees, Afrikaners granted asylum in U.S. are cowards, says Ramaphosa. And that Ramaphosa, if you do not know, he is the president of South Africa. He's moving funny. I didn't report this, but I'll let you know that he'll meet with Trump to discuss this. I don't know what diplomatic pursuits he has by speaking with Trump. I mean, it's pretty clear that the channel of communication has been, you know, very hostile. And I don't know what he seeks to gain by talking to Trump, but that should be interesting. And this article reads, President Ramaphosa of South Africa has called a group of Afrikaners cowards for seeking asylum in the United States on the claims that they face persecution and predicted that they would be back soon. The group of 59 from the country's white minority who were granted refugee status by Trump administration were, Ramaphosa said, clearly unhappy about two attempts to readdress the inequalities left by apartheid. We must stay here and solve our problems. When you run away, you are a coward, and that's a real cowardly act, his quote. The president said during a visit to South Africa's biggest agriculture show, he said that they would be back soon because there is no country like South Africa. The arrivals, mostly families, are settling into the new communities in states including Minnesota and Nevada after being granted fast-tracked refugee status by President Trump, who has claimed they were escaping a G-side. The Afrikaners arrived on a mostly empty passenger jet, while thousands of other applicants from war zones have been waiting for years.
And shifting focus to South Africa, the United States is resettling the first group of white South African refugees sparking strong reactions from Pretoria. President Cyril Ramaphosa has called them cowards for leaving the country. The United States has welcomed around 50 white South Africans following President Trump's promise to grant them asylum. Trump describes them as victims of racial injustice in their home country. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has strongly condemned the move. He called those who left cowards and said they'll be back soon. Ramaphosa claimed these individuals were unwilling to support the country's efforts to correct historic inequities left by apartheid, calling their departure a sad moment for them. The coward remarks sparked outrage online, with many social media users criticizing Ramaphosa for dismissing the concerns of white South Africans. Earlier, speaking at the Africa CEO Forum in Abidjan, Ramaphosa had said that he told President Trump that the US assessment of the situation was not true. And he added that refugees are typically those fleeing political, religious, or economic persecution, and claimed that those leaving South Africa don't fit that definition. President Trump has announced that Ramaphosa will be meeting him next week in Washington. Trump has defended the resettlement policy, alleging that the South African government is seizing white farmers' land under its land reform program, a move he calls discriminatory. But Pretoria calls this misinformation and has strongly denied the confiscating of any land. Pretoria has also rejected claims made by tech billionaire Elon Musk, who has accused the government of encouraging a white genocide. Musk, who was himself born in South Africa, is believed to be a major influence behind Trump's narrative on the issue. The controversy has sharply strained US-South Africa relations, with President Trump cutting all aid to South Africa, expelling its ambassador, skipping G20 meetings, and imposing high tariffs on South African exports. As political tensions escalate and rhetoric hardens, can the highly anticipated Trump-Ramaphosa meeting solve the situation? We'll continue to bring you the updates.
At First Post, we are choosing to hold on to accuracy. That means we won't always be first. We may not
White
get you
South African
your great
arrive in the United States of America today. What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing good. It's a beautiful day. Thank you very much for stopping by. We appreciate it. You know how it goes. You don't know who I am. I don't know who you are, but my name is Zach. Thank you very much for stopping by. Hey, we like you here. We want you here. Pick up my coffee. Pick up my coffee. Thank you so much. Pick up my coffee beans. Clap your hand in Swahili. This is family, fella. Okay? You want to know about Uganda, Tanzania, South Africa? You're at the right place. You want to know about the Motherlands? Any news, all news, you're at the right place. So you're welcome. We want you here. We like you here. I probably look like one of your cousins, you know, the one that you really like very, very much. You also look like mine. No doubt about that. So click on the button, subscribe, so we can see each other every single day. Great. We're going to agree. White South Africans arrive in the U.S. after Trump administration granted them refugee status. President Donald Trump invited Afrikaners, the descendants of mainly Dutch settlers, to move to the United States of America in February, escaping the alleged discrimination they face in South Africa. This is crazy stuff, fellas. We spoke about this, I believe, 2 days ago. We said that many white South Africans, Afrikaners, leaving South Africa, moving to the United States of America, they have arrived. Dozens of white South Africans have arrived in the United States after Trump administration granted them refugee status in the country, having deemed them victims of racial discrimination. Now, people are talking about 46 to 59. It's varied, reports varied from one place to the other. The first 59 Afrikaners were greeted by Christopher Landau, the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State at Washington Dulles International Airport. It's very interesting to be greeted by U.S. Deputy Secretary of State. Some experts say you don't get things like this very often, where refugees are greeted at the airport by high-hand government officials. President Donald Trump invited Afrikaners, the descendants of mainly Dutch settlers, to move to the United States of America in February. We spoke about this, fellas, and this is why. This is because They want to escape an alleged discrimination they face at the end of black majority in South Africa. And you're obviously asking yourself, how do they know this? Well, Elon Musk, you know Elon Musk? Yeah, Elon Musk told Donald Trump that people in South Africa are being genocided. They're being mistreated and they're being discriminated against. We're talking about white South Africans. For those of you who don't know, Elon Musk was born in South Africa. Yes, his father is white South African. His mother is Canadian. He left South Africa when he was younger, pursuing different adventures. But I believe he still holds a South African passport. So as you would think, his father is white South African. He probably did from apartheid in some ways. No doubt about that. So Donald Trump told reporters at the White House that there was a genocide that taking place with Afrikaners being killed. Now, is there any evidence to that? Neither Mr. Trump nor Elon Musk provided any evidence for this accusation. Mr. Trump also denied favoring Afrikaners because they are white, saying that their race makes no sense to me.
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have a G20 meeting there or something. But we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of. But it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place. And farmers are being killed. They happen to be white. But whether they're white or black makes no difference to me. But white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa. And the newspapers and the media, television media, doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they talk about it. That would be the only story they talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible. I have people that live in South Africa. They say it's a terrible situation taking place. So we've essentially extended citizenship to those people to escape from that.
Well, it's very interesting because some people would say that many people went to the United States of America being actually really repressed and depressed. Many people coming from war-torn Afghanistan, Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, that actually went to the United States of America because they were risking being unalive in the country. They have been sent back to the country. Now, these people questioning Trump are saying why those people were sent back, because America supposedly didn't have enough resources to look after all these people, but they have opened doors to white South Africans. Mr. Landau said that many South Africans who have arrived in the United States were farming families who could have their land worked for generations expropriated. We put an emphasis on could. Who could have their land expropriated? So it's not expropriated yet. They could have their land expropriated. Therefore, we're saving them from potentially having their land expropriated in the future. But it has not happened yet. And we're not 100% sure whether it's going to happen because they haven't taken any land from nobody, as far as we know, or as far as Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa has reported. But they could have their land expropriated. Therefore, let's anticipate and take them. Well, who's going to stay with the land? Question mark. He also repeated Mr. Trump claims that they were facing threats of violence. So let's just get back to the land. They could have their land expropriated, but it's not expropriated yet. But therefore, we're taking them to the United States. What's happening to the land? Are they selling the land? Who are they selling the land to? Are they selling the land to other white people? Why would white people buy those lands? Because it's going to be expropriated. So they're selling the land to black people and then leaving to the United States. Oh, so they got the money from the land. Or unless there was no land. Because many people are asking these questions and they want to understand, why would you leave your land and go if it's not expropriated yet? Wouldn't you wait until it's really expropriated for you to abandon it or at least sell it and have the money? Unless you didn't have any land. Now, these are questions many people are asking. Many people believe the majority of people who have left didn't have anything in South Africa. They didn't have lands. They didn't have money. They had no jobs. If they had jobs, it was not high-paying jobs at all. There were actually people struggling, walking down the streets, begging. Not all beggars were not living in the best position in society, and they just had enough. That is a version of some people, especially black people in South Africa. Because if everybody's genocided, why aren't all white people leaving South Africa going to the United States of America? Like this one.
They only want white people here. Because when we think about refugees who need immediate resettlement, expedited screenings, we usually think about people who are fleeing extreme violence, persecution, famine, war in places like South Sudan, Myanmar, the Congo, not white Afrikaners. See that chartered plane the Trump administration is sending? It's not going to collect refugees that have been sitting in resettlement camps for years, fully vetted, waiting to come to the United States to escape violence. No, it's going to South Africa to collect white people who claim to be against. Why would they be getting discriminated against? Probably because they spent generations instituting legalized forms of racial segregation and discrimination called apartheid, aka Stephen Miller's wet dream. See, while the rest of the world after World War II saw that maybe racial discrimination not such a hot idea and favored more policies of integration and away from colonization, Afrikaners doubled down on that shit and instituted apartheid. Although it ended over 30 years ago, the social and economic legacies of apartheid continue today. South Africa is the most unequal country in the entire world, according to the World Bank, with white South Africans earning over 12 times what black South Africans do. But don't worry, we're going to make sure that the white Afrikaners who instituted generations of discrimination and segregation against black people get everything they need to get started here in the United States in their new life.
Mr. Ramaphosa, president of South Africa, said, "We think that the American government has got the wrong end of the stick here, but we'll continue talking to them." Clearly, you can see they're not being rude. This is professionalism. This is diplomacy. You have to find the best words, you know. You clearly got it wrong. Not, "You took, why'd you take my white people? Give me back my white people. They are farmers." I mean, if you take the farmers, it's going to be bad for South Africa. Okay, do you think the black people of South Africa want the farmers to leave? No, they don't. I don't think they want, because the food is produced in most cases. You know, the potatoes, the tomatoes. Do you think most of the black people want to go work in the farm? Not everybody. There's too many of them to want to go work in the farm together. They want the diversity, or maybe they just want equality. You know, they just respect each other at the same level. Let's share fairly. Maybe that's the issue. We're gonna.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Maurice Snyman. This is not the place for you. We don't allow that type of rhetoric here. And we love you too, Sabon Nole in South Africa. Thank you for joining the show. I'm sorry for the pause, and it will resume.
Gonna find out. Mr. Ramaphosa said white Afrikaners who have arrived in the United States had left South Africa because they were against the policies aimed at addressing racial inequality, which has persisted in the country since the apartheid rule of the white minority ended 3 decades ago. So in simple English, because not all of us have doctorates in thinking, most of the white people that have left, according to Ramaphosa, have left because they are proposing equality. I mean, you had most of the land for most of the time. How about we share the land now? I mean, yeah, let's share the land so we can be equal. And he believes the people that have left South Africa have left because they don't like equality. They want to stay on top. That's what Ramaphosa said. Why have they left? Because 1, Elon Musk said they were taking their land by force. Number 2, white Afrikaners are being genocided or being victim of a genocide or living a genocide in South Africa, meaning they're being killed. Now, let's try and understand before we talk about genocide. Genocide is defined as an intentional act to destroy.
All right, you could look at the rest of that video. 5 minutes left. Zach always has good information, and clearly some people don't like this rhetoric and don't like the truth, but that's okay. My opinion, I don't know why Cyril Ramaphosa wants to be so forgiving. I understand diplomacy is the best policy, but I believe there's just been so much contention and tit for tat that where is the constructive dialogue going to talk with Trump and his administration? I could be wrong, but we will see. I mean, obviously, you saw that woman, she eloquently spoke about her opinions on the matter, and she is a white American, so her opinion matters, and she sees that there's an inequality. So we're not going to make this a race thing, because even other Americans see the hypocrisy in this policy, and this is a cultural engagement disaster, so to speak, because now you are going to basically gaslight your own population by having other foreigners come to this population and having fast-tracked privileges that others do not have within the U.S. borders, all while other refugees are being kicked out and being denied access to refugee status when they are facing real life crises or human right crises. So that will be an interesting development to look at. Next story: military rulers in Mali dissolve all political parties. And just give me 1 second. Let me put that article in the chat. All right. And the article reads, Mali's military government announced on Tuesday that it had dissolved all political parties, approving a recommendation publicized last month that spurred unprecedented protests in the capital of Bamako. Last month, a national conference of political actors in Mali recommended naming Goïta as president with a 5-year mandate, as well as dissolving the parties. In protests in Bamako, on May 3rd and May 4th, several hundred critics carried placards of displaying messages calling for multi-party elections and chanted slogans such as "Down with dictatorship, long live democracy." The junta originally committed to elections in February 2020-2000, ahead of another planned protest on May 9th. Mali suspended political activities across the country, forcing the opposition parties to call off their gathering. In my opinion, this is the way to go, and you could see who your enemies are, because it's just, asinine that you would want democracy when democracy hasn't garnered you anything in Mali and in the Sahel as a whole. And on top of that, ECOWAS is using things such as democracy to continue to have influence on said countries. That's why the Alliance of Sahel States was created, because democracy wasn't working. And within short time, President Goïta has, done many things that has helped the progression of Mali economically, and, further developing the country and also pursuing sovereignty. So why go back to democracy? But I'm rambling on. Let me play the video.
Now, Mali's military leader, General Assimi Goïta, has suspended all political party activities indefinitely, citing public order concerns. Now, this move comes shortly after a rare pro-democracy protest in Bamako and amid debates over a proposed law to dissolve political parties. Now, let's remember that since taking power through coups in 2020 and 2021, the military has repeatedly delayed elections, raising alarms among citizens and international observers about the erosion of democratic governance. United Nations experts who argue that the suspension violates basic freedoms like the rights to political participation and free assembly. Now, the question here is, can long-term security and stability truly be achieved by silencing democratic voices? This is what we're going to dissect at the moment and unpack. We have Dr. Mohammed Dan Suleiman, founding director, Center for Alternative Politics and Security, West Africa, in Saudi Arabia at the moment. And we also have Daniel Eisinger, PhD, Research Fellow, Africa Center for Strategic Studies, National Defense University in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen, on the conversation.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so first of all, I would love to hear your thoughts, Daniel, on this suspension and the fact that the suspension followed a rare pro-democracy rally in Bamako, which was held by hundreds of activists, defying heavy security presence as well. Share your thoughts on how significant you feel the protest was.
I think it's very significant because the junta in Bamako has been trying to clamp down and repress any kind of dissent and criticism of its time in power, really, since the first coup in 2020. And you mentioned in your lead-in that they had the first coup in 2020 and a second coup in 2021, and they've really professed to be committed to a transition to civilian rule ever since that initial coup. But if you sort of look at the actions they've taken since, they just continue to kick the can down the road. And this is sort of the latest attempt, I think, in their process of doing exactly that. In addition to this proposal to dissolve political parties, there's also a proposal to appoint Assimi Goïta as president for the next 5 years, renewable for another 5 years after that. And so I think what's happened here is that we've had the veil kind of pulled back on the junta, and they really are in a process of trying to establish military rule and dictatorship over Mali for the next 10 years. And that sparked this protest by political parties and activists for democracy in Mali. And it is quite rare. It hasn't been seen that you've had this type of criticism against the junta in such public displays and in such large numbers in Bamako in recent years. And so I think they're reacting to that. And unsurprisingly, they're reacting in a very forceful way that could press civil dissent and disobedience. And we hope that it won't result in violence in the streets.
Oh, we hope so too. Now let's hear from you, Dr. Suleiman, because most quarters have actually condemned the suspension as a basic violation of human rights. So do you agree as well? Do you believe that suspending all party activities risks eroding Mali's civic space and violating basic human rights?
Yes, I think that is very clear.
Well, from my understanding, voting is not a human basic right or privilege. That is a Western ideology. They're going to put their spin on it. Like that gentleman said, that he hopes that there's not going to be any violence from this. We know what that means. That's like, code for a coup. Again, the Mali's doing the right thing because they've had several coup attempts, and it's been on the guise of democracy. And democracy is a way that the West could still have influence in the country. And if there's people who are in favor of democracy, I'd have to ask you, as the title says, who's your alliance to? Because you've seen what democracy has done to your country for the past, I don't know, whenever ECOWAS was formed, and I was probably I'd say, give or take 50 years ago, and ECOWAS hasn't done anything for you, and it has, caused you economic despair and has left your country war-torn, and I don't know what the absolute answer is, because it's nuanced, but I don't think democracy is the answer in pausing it. So the president can figure out what the best strategy would be instead of allowing, political parties that may have agents within them to continue to spread propaganda and to cause unrest.
Not only does the suspension violate the basic human rights of Malians, it also goes against a lot of international guarantees of human rights. And for example, there's the African Charter for People and Political Rights, which gives citizens the right to participate in the politics of their countries. There are also several UN charters that this decision actually violates. And for me,
all
the
Western
fact that
institutions.
Assimi Goïta and his government have consistently postponed elections and violated transition periods, and
Because of
this time
coups.
taking away the rights of the people, it shows that the people are getting impatient with the government, and the government are beginning to realize that if it doesn't take those measures, then it may lose the clout that it has before the people. So yes, it will continue if things don't change. If the suspension is not revoked, if the government continues to
All right, and you could watch the rest of this video because I'm tired of the propaganda. I was trying to find another video, that had a more neutral stance, but it's hard, of course, because things are being shadow banned and whatnot. But there's been so much progress going on in Mali right now in just the Alliance of Sahel states. So we expect that there are people who do not like what's going on, and they're going to create narratives to stop said progress, because obviously a free Africa isn't, in the favor of everyone. And, in my opinion, this is a smart cultural engagement to end political parties, because democracy is a framework that has never worked in Africa due to corruption. Furthermore, democracy is a Western ideology used to hinder the progress of African nations. The West has used the political influence to subvert sovereignty and progression. ECOWAS is an example of democracy failing in the Sahel, and in response, the AES was created. Next story. African leaders attend Russia's Victory Day parade. And I will put that article in the chat. Okay, and the article reads, African leaders to attend Russia's Victory Day parade. 7 African heads of state are expected to attend Moscow's Victory Day parade on May 9th. This has happened already. That happened last Friday. Commemorative events in the Russian capital will mark 80 years since the Soviet Union's victory over, Nazi Germany in World War II. Among the invited leaders are Burkina Faso's President Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Guinea-Bissau President Umaro Sissoko Embalo, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Zimbabwe President Emmerson Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of the Congo Denis Sassou Nguesso, President of Equatorial Guinea Tedros Adhanom, and the Ethiopian President Taye Atske Selassie. Russian President Vladimir Putin is expected to hold bilateral meetings with the leaders of 5 African states: Congo, Egypt, Zimbabwe, Burkina Faso, and Guinea-Bissau.
The leaders of Cuba, Mongolia, and Venezuela arrived in Moscow Wednesday ahead of Russia's Victory Day celebrations. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro is on the guest list, which also includes Chinese President Xi Jinping and Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Army tanks have been driving through the Red Square to perform drills ahead of the day as fighter jets flew in formation over Moscow. A massive parade and other ceremonies underline Moscow's efforts to project power and cement the alliances it has forged amid the conflict in Ukraine. Victory Day, which is celebrated in Russia on May 9, has become the country's most important secular holiday. It is meant to remember victory over Germany in the Second World War.
Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the indomitable leader of Burkina Faso, has once again seized the world's attention with his historic visit to Moscow. Invited personally by Russian President Vladimir Putin to attend Russia's 80th Victory Day parade, an honor reserved for the Kremlin's most trusted allies, Traoré's presence in the Russian capital has electrified the African continent and reverberated across the globe. This was no ordinary diplomatic trip. It was a bold declaration of Africa's awakening, a defiant stand against centuries of Western domination, and a clarion call for a new world order rooted in sovereignty, dignity, and self-determination. While other African leaders were also invited to Moscow, it is Traoré alone who has captured the spotlight, his name echoing in the streets of Ouagadougou, Nairobi, Accra, and beyond. His arrival, facilitated by a special jet sent by Putin himself, and the rapturous reception he received from Africans in Russia, underscore his singular stature as the torchbearer of a resurgent Pan-Africanist movement. This is not the first time Traoré has shaken the world from a Russian platform. His 2023 speech at the Russia-Africa Summit left African leaders stunned and Western powers scrambling. Today, his latest visit has amplified his message, cementing his role as the voice of a generation determined to end poverty, halt deadly mass migration, and dismantle the shackles of neo-colonialism. When President Vladimir Putin extended invitations to African leaders for the Victory Day celebrations, it was clear that Moscow sought to deepen its ties with the continent amid a shifting geopolitical landscape. Leaders from Mali, Niger, and other African nations joined the prestigious guest list. But from the moment the invitations were announced, one name dominated the conversation: Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The 37-year-old revolutionary, who seized power in Burkina Faso through a coup in September 2022, has become a symbol of defiance against Western hegemony and a beacon of hope for millions of Africans disillusioned by decades of exploitation. Posts on X buzzed with excitement, with users like Natalie Ormer proclaiming, in a stunning geopolitical twist, Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré has been personally invited by Vladimir Putin to stand beside him during Russia's 80th Victory Day parade, an honor reserved for the most trusted allies of the Kremlin. While other African leaders arrived in Moscow with their delegations, their presence faded into the background, overshadowed by the magnetic pull of Traoré's persona. The Burkinabe leader's invitation was no mere formality. It was a carefully orchestrated gesture by Putin, who has repeatedly signaled his admiration for Traoré's uncompromising stance against neo-colonialism. Unlike his counterparts, Traoré's visit was marked by extraordinary pomp and circumstance, a testament to the unique bond between Ouagadougou and Moscow. In a move that underscored the Kremlin's high regard for Traoré, President Putin dispatched a private plane to transport the Burkinabe leader from Ouagadougou to Moscow, accompanied by Russian fighter jets, a gesture reserved for only the most esteemed guests. This was no ordinary flight. It was a powerful symbol of Russia's commitment to Burkina Faso and its revolutionary captain. As Sprinter Observe noted on Facebook, Ibrahim Traoré arrived in Moscow at the invitation of President Vladimir Putin to attend Victory Day celebrations. Russia sent a private plane to transport him from Burkina Faso, accompanied by fighter jets. The image of Traoré stepping off the plane in Moscow, clad in his signature military fatigues, sent a surge of pride through African communities worldwide. It was a moment that declared unequivocally that Africa's youngest leader was not just a guest, but a partner on equal footing with one of the world's most powerful nations. The special jet was more than a logistical detail. It was a deliberate message to the West, which has watched with growing unease as Burkina Faso pivots away from its former colonial master, France, and toward Russia. Since Traoré expelled French troops and diplomats from Burkina Faso in 2023, he has forged a robust partnership with Moscow, securing weapons, helicopters, and reportedly Russian security personnel to protect his government. The jet, the fighter escort, and the red carpet treatment in Moscow were Putin's way of signaling that Traoré is not just an ally but a pivotal figure in Russia's vision for a multipolar world. Upon landing in Moscow, Traoré was greeted not only by Russian officials, but by a throng of Africans living in Russia, who gathered to catch a glimpse of the man they call Africa's Messiah. From students to diaspora activists, the crowd chanted his name, waved Burkinabe and Pan-African flags, and held signs proclaiming, "Traoré, the people's captain." The scenes were reminiscent of the hero's welcome he received upon returning to Ouagadougou after the 2023 Russia-Africa Summit, when thousands lined the streets to celebrate his fiery speech. As Sprinter Observe reported in 2023, nationwide celebration, the leader of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, was greeted by several thousand fellow citizens when he returned from the Russia-Africa Summit. This time, the reception in Moscow was equally fervent, but it was strikingly exclusive to Traoré. Other African leaders, despite their presence at the Victory Day events, were met with little fanfare. The contrast was stark. While Traoré's every move was documented on social media, with viral videos showing Africans chanting his name, the arrivals of other heads of state went largely unnoticed. This disparity speaks volumes about Traoré's unique ability to connect with the masses, both in Africa and in the diaspora. His youth, his unapologetic rhetoric, and his bold actions, such as nationalizing Burkina Faso's gold reserves and redirecting mining revenues to defense, have made him a folk hero, a modern-day Thomas Sankara, whose legacy he openly embraces.
All right, you could watch the rest of the video at your own time. It's rather long. Africa is powerful, always cranks out these 20-minute videos, but always gives good overview on the different implications of what's going on. And what I believe, just a concise, assessment of what's going on. African leaders showing up to this event illustrates that Russia has strong diplomatic ties with Africa. In addition, it shows that Western influence is becoming antiquated day by day. African leaders supporting Russia signifies solidarity. Russia has been making beneficial strategic partnerships, and it has now fostered strong alliances on the continent. And just more on the aftermath of this meeting, Burkina leader seeks stronger military ties with Russia. And this article reads, Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré on Saturday called for deeper military and scientific links with Russia while on a visit to Moscow. The head of the African nation's military-dominated government and President Vladimir Putin held a meeting at the Kremlin, a day after they attended a Red Square parade with other international leaders. Despite all the sanctions, Russia manages to remain at the forefront of the international stage. It is a lesson for all of us, Traoré said, also praising the Russian army's modernized equipment. Putin said Russia would continue to assist Burkina Faso, suppressing radical groups and training officials. We are united by the common goal of combating terrorism, Putin said, also advocating stronger economic cooperation.
Shifting focus to Burkina Faso now, the junta leader Ibrahim Traoré has called for deeper ties with Russia. Ibrahim Traoré, the head of Burkina Faso's military-dominated government, was in Moscow over the weekend. He met Russian President Vladimir Putin after attending the Victory Day military parade held on the 9th of May at Red Square. Traoré said that he wants his country's relations with Russia to grow exponentially and to expand into new areas of cooperation. He clarified that he would not ask for military aid from Moscow while the Russian forces are engaged in Ukraine, but he urged Russia to share its knowledge, help educate Burkina Faso's young population, and to support efforts to end the jihadist conflict in the country. Traoré also praised Moscow's role on the global stage.
I think that with all the sanctions against Russia for some time, Russia has even developed an internal mechanism that puts it at the forefront of the international scene. And we are taking good notes of these lessons we have learned here.
Finir avec cette guerre, avoir une armée forte et lancer le développement de notre patrie.
Putin, for his part, highlighted the growing volume of trade between Russia and Burkina Faso. He noted Russia's ongoing humanitarian support, despite being under international sanctions. Putin said that Russia would continue to assist Burkina Faso by suppressing radical groups and training state officials.
Today, we are united by a common goal, the fight against terrorism and extremism. We will continue to assist the Republic in restoring legality and constitutional order, while contributing to the repression of radical groups that remain in certain regions of Burkina Faso.
Under Traoré, who seized power in a coup in September of 2022, Burkina Faso has moved away from its former colonial master, France, and has moved closer to Russia. Russia has reportedly sent military advisors and equipment, some linked to the Wagner Group, now rebranded as Africa Corps. Now, the Burkinabe military leadership views Russian assistance as crucial in combating jihadist insurgencies in the Sahel. Russia has also expanded its presence in Burkina Faso's mining sector, particularly in gold and uranium. Agreements have been signed for Russian companies to explore and extract mineral resources. There are also plans for infrastructure projects and potential cooperation in nuclear energy. Burkina Faso's turn toward Russia is part of a broader trend among military-led governments in the Sahel, including Mali and Niger. All three nations have withdrawn from the regional bloc ECOWAS and have formed the Alliance of Sahel States. The growing cooperation signals a strategic realignment away from traditional Western allies and toward alternative partnerships, be it military, economic, and ideological.
Okay, it's the end of the event in Russia, the defiance event. Yes, defying the West, even though they issued threats through Zelensky. We cannot guarantee your security. Okay, so that's perhaps killing it, overkilling it. Maybe they didn't ask Zelensky to say anything. Maybe Zelensky just wanted to say that, trying his luck to see whether other presidents will fear and not come. But I think that was a power move from these presidents. If we don't go, it sends a signal to the world that we're scared, therefore weak. If we go and they hit us, it's going to be mayhem. Let's see what's happening. This is the end. Vladimir Putin is saying goodbye to the people. Let's watch. China.
感谢您抽出时间来到莫斯科。我еще целый день работы здесь предстоит. 前面还有一整天的工作。Очень содержательные беседы у нас были. 昨天我们进行了内容非常丰富的交谈。Всего самого доброго. 祝您一切顺利，一切愉快。
祝你一切顺。
我也是同样的这种表示。祝贺这一次的胜利活动非常的成功。我们之间的会谈也非常有意义。С успешным проведением Дня Победы.
Спасибо. У нас были очень успешные переговоры. Жду встречу с вами в Китае.
You can tell these two see each other quite a lot. They've become very friends. Brazil president. That's the president from Brazil.
Muito obrigada, presidente.
Obrigado.
Muito obrigada.
Еще раз с праздником. Сейчас увидим.
Speaking in Russia, Soviet Union. Speaking in Russia again.
Да, увидимся сегодня.
Maduro.
Спасибо большое.
Спасибо. Very strong figure against. That's the Venezuelan president.
Спасибо большое. С праздником еще раз. И до завтра.
Security behind, always looking. Oh! Piga Mikono, piga Mikono, piga Mikono. See you tomorrow. You're represented, fellas. You're represented. You can see that. You're represented. Let's go. You can see how proud this man is of him. Like, so proud of you. You defiance. You that guy we always wait for. Let's go. Russian again. So a lot of these presidents are part of the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union, obviously, even though today it doesn't exist anymore, they became countries, but they still speak Russian. They like brothers. Okay, the lady you see right there as auntie is Defense Minister of South Africa, representing President Cyril Ramaphosa. I'm not 100% sure why the president didn't go himself, but certainly trying to build this new relationship with Trump, not to bother Trump too much. So let's send the lady to go represent her. Let's go.
Thank you for coming, ma'am. All the best. Спасибо. Очень понравилось. Продолжим работу.
Поздравляю вас и ваш народ. Спасибо. В качестве сувенира. Спасибо за все. Merci beaucoup d'être venu. Merci. Большое спасибо за все эти беседы, которые были с вами. Спасибо за прием. On reste en contact.
This is the president of Congo Brazzaville.
Travailler.
Спасибо.
You can see how charismatic Putin is and has become, even more than he was in the past. Russian. Russian again. Where's the sound? They muted the sound. Strategical. You shouldn't hear that conversation. The microphone went off. You saw that? This is the president from Brazil, from Egypt, sorry.
Я желаю, чтобы вы всегда отмечали победу, господин президент.
Спасибо большое за хорошее пожелание.
Шукран.
Спасибо.
Zimbabwe.
We'll see each other soon.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations. I conveyed your message to Narendra Modi.
All right, and basically, Russia has met a need for Burkina Faso with its military training initiative and providing security for its borders. Burkina Faso is able to pursue sovereignty and control its resources with the help of Russia, creating an opportunity for economic progression and security. Basically, a strategic partnership. That's what we want here at Quest Unite Africa, promoting strategic partnerships. All right, and then the last story, Traore fires back.
There's definitely a problem.
Absolutely, Chairman. I see this and I don't mind calling them out, but Captain Traore and Burkina Faso, as they know that both, whether it's the their gold reserves, that is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime. There's a number of examples across, even in Sudan.
Fellas, We all came together in support of Burkina Faso President Ibrahim Traore. People came out the street from Togo to Lomé, from Jamaica to Kenya, Antigua to Angola. We all came together as one people to support Ibrahim Traore. We were not happy. A lot of people were actually angry that, again, you want to take one of us. We know this. We've seen this clip before. We're not going to let it happen. Now, Ibrahim Traore has replied. He has answered the American general that accused him of using Burkina Faso's gold for his own good. In this interview, fellas, we're going to hear from the man himself. Let's go.
He talked about the gold from Burkina Faso, which is what we used to protect ourselves and everything. First of all, it's Burkina Faso's gold. It's not his gold. That's the first thing. What business is it of his? I don't know what happened. I'm on with this general. There's definitely a problem. I hope maybe he'll make his mea culpa. If he was sent, he should understand that this is not the right mission. If he was misled, then he should say so publicly, or otherwise before the Senate, admit that he was mistaken, or if it was ill-intentioned, well, we will confront him as we should, because everything he said is a lie. It's very shameful to see an adult a general officer of a great army lie.
He said it's ugly to see an adult lie. It's ugly to see an adult lie. And so, fellas, I know some of you are not Africans, so I just want to make you understand in cultural-wise, in terms of African. If an African says, but you're an adult, it means you are a grown person. The behavior you're displaying right now is very childish. Like it's sad to see an adult. Like I'm giving you the respect. You are way older than me. But it's sad to see you behave like a kid. Without like, how do you behave like a kid? You're such a grown man. That's a little bit what you're trying to say. Let's go.
It's very serious. First, he talked about Burkina's gold, saying that we use it to protect ourselves and so on. First of all, it's Burkina's gold. It's not his gold.
Oh.
That's the first thing. What business is it of his?
The gold belongs to Burkina Faso. It's not yours. Why do you bother with gold from Burkina Faso? Again, why do you bother? Are you cousins? Are you related to them? Is it your gold? Let's go.
It has nothing to do with him. It's Burkina's gold. It doesn't concern him. Second, he's lying. Because Burkina never had any gold reserves until we came. We are the ones who started setting aside gold in the treasury of Burkina Faso. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a single gram of gold reserves in Burkina. That means he's a liar, again. Another thing, when he says that we use it to protect ourselves and all that, we are free. If the people have decided that we should govern them, we have a duty to protect ourselves. So we are free. How is it any of his business? And the part that hurt me the most, not because he's a general or because he's American or anything like that, but because he's black. And it really hurts to see that they use a black man to fight against another black man. And this didn't just start now. It has to stop. It's very dangerous. Even Libya, who destroyed Libya? They used a black man again. In movies back in the day, in America, black people always played the bad guy. But we told ourselves, it's just in the movies. Why do black people have to keep playing the bad roles?
So in American movies, black people are usually the villain, the bad guy, the thief, the drug addict, the rapist, the criminal, the convict. He's just been in jail now. You know, he says we see that on movies. Why does it have to be replicated in real life? Why?
I think that if he heard this interview, he should look at himself in the mirror, feel ashamed, and come out to say, I was given a false report. I regret it.
This is a straight message to Langley. Like, if he watched this interview, he needs to watch himself. He needs to look at himself in the glass, in the mirror, and say, hey, I think I'm effed up here, okay? This is straight from Traore to him. If he watches this, he needs to ask himself a question.
He needs to say it publicly. If it was a false report, then it was made, because it's possible. It's possible that someone gave him a false report and that he could come out and say it.
I mean, the man is so emotionally intelligent that he understands that maybe it's not the general that is wrong. Maybe the
All right, I'm gonna play the rest of this video and close out the show. And I put the other link to the videos, basically a different version, different subscriber. And Salama bro, Garth and fam, exciting times we are all in. Praises to the Most High that are awakened can now see who your true enemies are and their schemes. It's a new day, absolutely, because you see, like, Ibrahim Traore is a different type of African leader. I mean, he has the sense, and he has the intelligence to see how they use how they basically use us to destroy us. They always use people that look like us to destroy us. They always use people like us to spread propaganda that we don't like each other and that we're different from one another, and we're so different, and we are not the same people. But he knows, he's awakened. He's let the diaspora know that that's not true, and he is he wants to have his brothers and sisters back in Africa thriving, and he wants us to come back together to basically rebuild Africa. And he already invited the diaspora to come back to Burkina Faso and help build. I mean, it's something, a sight to behold. Like, this is crazy. I mean, he's only 37 years old. I'm 35. So he's truly an inspiration.
What he received was wrong. You hear me? Can we pick up my coffee here a little bit? No. Yes, pick up my coffee. Thank you. In most cases, when you see situations like this, what do? We react, right? Now, he refused to react objectively 100%. He says, maybe he got a bad report. Maybe it's not him. Maybe he need to double check whoever reports to him. Instead of just saying, you are wrong, you are this. Maybe you got a bad report. How about that?
Again, as I have between us and myself, the Ivorian Minister of Defense, who goes to Turkey to see the Turkish Minister of Defense and tells him, you don't sell us weapons. Do you see how much that hurts? When it's a black person who behaves like that, it really hurts. Did we make a false report?
So he says the Minister of Cote d'Ivoire, here's Cote d'Ivoire on a map. The Minister of Cote d'Ivoire went to Turkey and he saw the Minister of Defense of Cote d'Ivoire and saw the Minister of Defense of Turkey asking them not to sell weapons to Burkina Faso. Why?
If he was sent to create a problem in Burkina, as they are used to doing, we will get ready. We will be waiting for them. Because this has to stop now. The black race must not be used to fight against other black people. Every time it's the same thing. That's what we deplore. And it really hurt us to see that it was a black person making those statements. It's true that they may regret it through various channels. They're trying to make up for it. But now that it was said publicly, it needs to be corrected publicly.
So what he's trying to say here is they issue these statements of accusation blatantly in public. And now it feels like they're trying to find ways to restructure what they said. So if you said accusations publicly and you want to come sideways to sort of not apologize, but trying to fix your word, then you need to fix your word publicly. And maybe say, okay, guys, I think I was misled with the wrong report or something similar.
That's how we are. We're no longer engaging in diplomatic hypocrisy, as we like to say, saying things loudly, and then coming back later to say, no, we're sorry, we didn't mean it. It needs to be said publicly. So I urge them to make amends, to say it publicly, because African youth have understood. Black youth all over the world have understood. This manipulation doesn't work anymore. It's always been like this, using false pretexts to try to achieve other goals. It doesn't work anymore.
False accusations have been used many, many times to destabilize African countries and whoever nation that is standing up for themselves. Same for Gaddafi. They accuse Gaddafi of unaliving his own people so they can have a legitimate reason to go and destroy the man. Why? Because Gaddafi wanted Africa to move forward, to be independent. They accused Saddam Hussein of hosting weapons of mass destruction, mass whatever. They never found it. They just wanted the reason to go. Let's go.
So it's unfortunate, but Burkina Faso remains true to its path. We will continue to develop. And he forgot to mention everything we are doing for Burkina Faso.
Okay.
What we are doing, no previous regime has accomplished. The socioeconomic development of Burkina Faso. Who has done that? We are building many health centers, equipping them with medical devices for examinations, and lowering the costs of medical tests. Which regime has done the same?
And as he says that, family, I am going
in
to
agriculture,
do a shameless plug and put this link in here so we could help in that effort of the building of hospitals in Burkina Faso to help our initiative to send a container to Burkina Faso to help President Ibrahim Traoré in that effort. And there's only a couple seconds left of this video, so I'm going to close out. You know, I just thank everyone who, you know, took the time to tune in and watch this show. I hope this inspires you to get involved. Please check out Quest Unite Africa, our website, and see where there are opportunities to lend your skill, because that's what we need to do. We need to spread our knowledge and expertise that we have learned here and bring it to the continent of Africa to help our brothers and sisters develop economically and to help build better roads and schools and better critical infrastructure. And I just want to make an announcement. Next Friday, there will not be a show. I just need to personally take a break to work on different things within my own stuff. So I will be back May 30th. And I just thank everyone who supports Quest Unite Africa. And I just hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day and their Shabbat and Shabbat Shalom. I'm out.